They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. We are so happy to have you with us today. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And it is officially graduation season, Katie. It has been a long time since I've graduated from anything other than the School of Hard Knocks. But college was a while ago, and I remember it was great. I remember being very sick at my college graduation, but dang it, I was going to walk because I did it. I earned it. I was going to go and get my diploma. And I look back at this time of year as being really kind of a fun thing where it's the first time that you have a huge accomplishment and it's like the start of something and kids can go out and they realize they have the whole world ahead of them. But it seems that commencement addresses have gotten very political these days, as has everything, I guess.
So I actually have to confess that I did not go to my college graduation. Isn't that crazy?
You skipped it?
I did. I haven't even thought about that in years, but I had kind of mixed feelings. I did not love my college experience, I will say. And I did not graduate on time because I missed having a science requirement. So I had to stay and do rocks for jocks in summer school. And then I'm like, I'm not sticking around for graduation. I mean, I think I would have missed my June graduation. Okay, so that's my graduation story. So yes.
You had none. I got it. One thing I think that I love about you is that even though we talk a lot about the college experience and what's going on college campuses, for me, I feel like every bit of life experience, every bit of knowledge that I use every single day in my profession didn't come from like the college setting. It came from just working through it. And so when I graduated college, it literally took me forever because I was working. I was a commuter kid. I was just working all the time. I took a couple years off. And so finally, when I put my nose to the grindstone and actually graduated, I thought I am not missing the chance to walk across this dang stage and collect this thing that I've been working on for so long. But I can understand, I think had I done it all at once, maybe I may have felt like you and just maybe not shown up. I don't know. But the reason we bring it up is because you've probably heard by now the story of Harrison Butker. But things have blown up over the last few days with this guy. Harrison Butker is a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs, no slouch in the football department, Super Bowl champs. Of course, they've gotten a lot of notoriety because they've got Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback, Travis Kelce, who's dating Taylor Swift now as one of their, what is he, a defensive end, I think, or whatever he is. This team gets a lot of attention. But I don't think that Harrison Butker got much attention until he was speaking at a college commencement. Apparently, Harrison Butker is a Catholic, and he's a pretty devout Catholic. And so they asked him to speak in a graduation address at a Catholic university. Makes sense so far, right? And he made a 20-minute speech. And during that time, he inflamed every leftist on the planet. And for a group of people who I think had forgotten, Katie, what a woman was and forgot how to defend women, like when it comes to competing in sports, now the left remembers what women are again. And they were outraged on behalf of all women because of Harrison Butker's speech, which we're going to listen to. But can I make a full confession to you?
Yes.
So I have to read a lot of news like you do. I host a radio show in Los Angeles, and I was reading the headlines about this Harrison Butker speech. And based on the headlines I read, I was like, this guy's a misogynist. There's no, please, this guy's terrible. And I mentioned to my co-host, Grant Stinchfield, who some of you know from Real America's Voice, maybe, or you listen to on the radio program I do. Grant said, Jen, I think you really need to listen to this speech. I'm like, oh, please, Grant, of course you'd like this speech, and I'm just giving him a hard time because that's what we do with each other. I was wrong. I can't believe I never fall for headlines. Never. But I fell for these headlines because they were so strong and so crazy. But when I listened to the speech of Harrison Butker, I couldn't find much to argue about. And I'm really curious to know what you think. I know you haven't previewed the whole thing yet because I kind of wanted it to be authentic so that I could get your real reactions, Katie. But let's jump into some of this speech and hear from Harrison Butker. This was his commencement address, 20 minutes to students at a Catholic college. And he talks about how women have been lied to. Take a listen to this.
I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Now, he then said that while some of the women in the audience may go on to lead successful careers in the world, he would venture to guess the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into the world. He claimed his wife, and he talked about his wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. He added that homemaker is one of the most important titles of all. That was one of the things that drove people absolutely insane. Now, Katie, you're an incredible mother. You took time off to raise your kids. I do not have kids at this point, but I will tell you that as someone who is a really proud career woman, I do think that there's a piece of me that is missing. Now, that doesn't mean I'm saying every woman needs to have children. That doesn't mean that every person on the planet is destined to be a mother. But I think in our culture right now, the emphasis is on creating strong women, strong career women, and homemakers are almost disrespected by the main when this is the most important job, to raise a great and thriving family. And that there should be no shame in people who choose or who have the ability to go home and actually raise their kids. I mean, financially, some people can't, and they would really like to. But I think if we're about promoting free choices and we're about promoting all sorts of thoughts and ways of life, there is a real push by society to try to oppress or to try to put down women who choose to do this really important job. And when I heard this, I was like, I'm glad he spoke out about his wife and talking about the fact that she's able to raise their kids and that she knows the value of that. There's no shame in saying that at all.
I think, and I think he was really right in saying that women have been lied to. I just, I think it's really true. I got into my 20s thinking I'm not going to have children.
Right.
Even, and I'm older than you. And so this was even longer ago, right? Before feminism had sort of so taken over. But even then I was kind of anti-children. And honestly, it was only when my sister had kids that I really kind of woke up to the beauty of motherhood. And then I'm like grateful beyond words. And actually, this is part of my prayer of gratitude every morning to God, that I was blessed to not only find an incredible husband, but to have two amazing children. And my career, for as much as I love it and as much as I value my work, find fulfillment in it. My children and my husband always come first. So yeah. I love what he said. And, I was with Mike Gallagher this morning talking about my book, and he made a comment about this, which I thought was a really good one. He said, there are reasonable responses to what he said, right? If you wanted to have a reasonable conversation, someone might have made the point, okay, not everybody is called to motherhood, or not everybody is called to marriage, and that's okay too. But to tear him down and to, basically want to massacre him because of what he said is ridiculous.
And wait till you hear what some celebrities are asking for right now. And that's the point, is that I think true feminism comes from lifting up all women. So whether that woman chooses a career or whether that woman chooses to go home, there shouldn't be any shame. And we shouldn't look at the women who are at home as somehow weaker. If anything, they're putting a part of their life aside because they are prioritizing their family. And I think it is really a weird place that we're in when we have celebrities and you have all these people with loud voices and big platforms somehow besmirching what is one of the most important jobs on the planet, is to be a great mom and to create a great family life. All right, so let's hear a little bit more because the anger is real. Cut number 2, he talks about biblical teachings. Take a listen.
It was exactly what the cultural elite want to see in Christianity. private, hidden away, and harmless. Our Catholic faith has always been countercultural. Our Lord, along with countless followers, were all put to death for their adherence to her teachings. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We fear speaking truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority. Congress just passed a bill where stating something as basic as the biblical teaching of who killed Jesus could land you in jail.
I mean, I don't hear him saying anything wrong. He's saying that truth is getting buried because we're trying to be inclusive to everyone, except for the people who might have an alternate perspective. Again, this is Harrison Butker's speech. He's a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs at Benedictine College, a Catholic university where he got a standing ovation. But people on the left, especially celebrities, are all up in arms about that.
And I just want to add, I told you that I skipped my own graduation, so I don't even know what was said, but I had to sit through both of my children's college graduations in the last few years. Both of them were, the talks were rabidly liberal. And you didn't hear anybody from the conservative side making, outrageous comments, right? But heaven forbid that this guy should make this speech. But I just want to say that the clip that we just played, right around it, like either right before or right after, he had one of my favorite lines from the speech, which was this. He said, "We need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition."
Isn't that great? The Church of Nice. I know.
Yes.
All right, let's listen to one more clip, and then we're going to talk about this crazy reaction. All right, this is about his teammate's girlfriend, who we all know is little Tay-Tay, Taylor Swift.
Tragically, so many priests revolve much of their happiness from the adulation they receive from their parishioners. And in searching for this, they let their guard down and become overly familiar. This undue familiarity will prove to be problematic every time because, as my teammate's girlfriend says, familiarity breeds contempt.
So I don't understand the uproar. What's the issue there?
I am telling you that people have gone crazy saying that he should have, and I want to again remind people, this was at a Catholic university. This guy is Catholic. He's talking to a group of Catholics. But people have said that he should be replaced. So now you've got the head of the Kansas City Star who has said that he needs to be fired by the Kansas City Chiefs and that he should be replaced as punishment by a female kicker, that he needs to go because he's misogynist. This is some of the quotes from social media from Hollywood celebrities. Maren Morris, country singer who never misses a moment to chime in on anything cultural, referred back to our podcast. I think she must listen to Happy Women. Remember when we asked if you were in the forest, would you rather choose the man or the bear? She writes on Instagram, "I chose the bear," referring to the trend where women state whether they would rather encounter a bear or man. She puts that on the bottom of his video. Flava Flav, who you might know wears the big clock around his neck. Sounds like some players need to stay in their lanes and shouldn't be giving commencement speeches. He says that. You've got a couple of other folks. Lisa Guerrero, who works for the NFL. If you want to continue to grow your female fan base and any other marginalized group, straight men are already watching your product. Come get your boy, basically asking him to be removed. And this one kills me. Hoda Kotb and Jenna Bush Hager, who are now on the Today Show. Jenna Bush says, "Who is Harrison to tell us? Don't speak for us. I think that's the kind of thing. Stop speaking for women out there." Whoopi Goldberg equated him to Colin Kaepernick. Maria Shriver says, "As a woman who has leaned into my vocation of living a meaningful life inside and outside the home to not only raise good humans, but also raise up our country in various ways, I think it's demeaning to women to imply that their choices outside of wife and motherhood pale in comparison to that of a homemaker." That's not what he is saying at all, but these people have gone nuts. Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam called him terrible names, but the one that I will point out that I think is absolutely right, and it's someone who is a conservative, and I believe she's also a Catholic, Patricia Heaton, who is on Everybody Loves Raymond, feels exactly, I think, how we might about this. She said, quote, "I don't understand why everyone's knickers are in a twist." She actually did a video on this. Butker gave a commencement speech. The audience applauded twice during the speech and gave him a standing ovation at the end. Clearly, they enjoyed what he was saying. The guy is espousing his own opinions and Catholic doctrine. So what? It's his opinion. He can have one. He's allowed. He's not a monster for stating what he believes. He went after bishops much more than he went after women or what women's choices are or what he thinks they should be. I don't understand. And I think that's where rational people really find themselves. And that's why I started by saying, look, I fell into this because I was reading every headline. They really misquoted everything that this guy said during his commencement address in a way to try to mislead people so that you spread the hatred against this guy who really said nothing, in my mind, all that controversial.
And as she points out, was expressing his opinion. Like, when did that become illegal in America? It just really, it's pretty incredible. Now, I wonder if we could shift from that to talking about one of my other favorite commencement speeches from these recent days. And that was our president, Joe Biden, speaking at Morehouse College. This is an all-male African-American college, and Biden gave a speech that was just, I think, one of the saddest, most depressing commencement speeches I've ever heard. You know, first of all, he talked a lot about himself and, you know, God bless him. He talked about the tragedies that he has faced. He talked about getting the call that his wife and daughter were killed in a car crash. He talked about losing his son to brain cancer. Yeah. I'm sorry that he's gone through those things. Not sure they're great content for a college graduation speech. But what really got under my skin is the fact that he treated these men who have gone to college, done the work to graduate from college, and all he wants to do is drive home to them that they are the inheritors of the legacy of slavery and really shouldn't see themselves as independent human beings with volition and ambition. I mean, it was the saddest, most depressing thing. Okay, here's one of the lines that just killed me. He said, "What does it mean to be a Black man and love his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure?" You know, I'm sorry, that's not the America we live in anymore.
No, it is not.
And I'll tell you something else. That I think he's lifted that straight out of Nicole Hannah-Jones's 1619 project, because she opens up with the story of her father coming back from having served in World War II and loving his country, but his country not loving him back in return. I think that's stolen from that. And
let's
it's just
be fair.
It
wouldn't be the first time he plagiarized something. I think that's sort of his MO. What I don't understand is that when you are speaking at a graduation, this is a happy moment in life. You are not speaking at a funeral. You're speaking at a graduation, which is really actually representative of a new life that you can create yourself. It is create for yourself. It's a new beginning. And I think what made me insane about this speech is that Joe Biden basically said, congratulations on making it through this really prestigious university. Your life's going to suck for the rest of the time because you're Black or you're a woman or whatever it is that they want to try to marginalize people with. This is your chance. I mean, shouldn't the message at a graduation be, wow, you've done all of this hard work. You've made it through. The world is ready for you. You are now able to go out and do whatever you put your mind to. Go out there and do it. Hard pass. I don't want to be at the graduation where a guy's telling me that everything's going to stink because America's terrible and systemically racist. And that was not the only lie he told. In fact, let's listen to a couple clips here of Joe Biden. I like to call him Chairman Joe, but President Biden at Morehouse College. And he's giving this commencement address. Here's what a little bit of it sounded like.
I never thought when I was graduating in 1968, as your honoree just was, we talked about, I never thought I'd be a president at a time when there's a national effort to ban books, not to write history, but to erase history. They don't see you in the future of America, but they're wrong. To me, we make history, not erase it.
Now, one of the things that he talked about, Katie, that drove me absolutely nuts is that leftists, Democrats, love to call Republicans names and try to label them as something that really the Democrats are, right? It's not, they like to call Republicans racist when really the racist stuff is happening within the Democrat Party. They're the ultimate in gaslighters. And when Joe Biden starts talking about banning books at this graduation, as part of his commencement, I almost like my head almost lifted off my shoulders, because it is not Republicans or conservatives who are out there banning books. It is the left who wants to get rid of To Kill a Mockingbird. They want to get rid of Huckleberry Finn. They want to erase all references to any sort of racism or the civil rights movement, which, by the way, should give us hope that we got better as a country. They want to erase all of that. They're the ones banning the real books. Conservatives want to ban a graphic novel showing pictures of gay sex in a fourth grade classroom. Like, the lies are just there. And then he can't even manage to spin a positive take on what's ahead for a group of people who could really use that inspiration as they start out on a new track in life. But instead, it is doom and gloom. And they do that because they want you to feel that it's hopeless, so that you have to rely on the government to make things better for you. And that's what always sits at the bottom of all of the doom and gloom from Democrats, particularly when they talk to people that they consider to be in a marginalized group.
Well, and you know what? It shouldn't come as a surprise that his speech really fell flat. One of the most interesting things for me is listening not only to what he says, but to the response. I mean, there was barely any applause. Nobody laughed at his jokes. And apparently there were people there who actually protested his having been chosen and turned their backs on him. Mm-hmm. But I think the most telling thing of all is listening to the responses to what he said, and there was no enthusiasm for it. This message, I just think that the Democrats have been trying to coast their way to victory on this message. It is falling flat, and it's no wonder that it's Black men in particular who are abandoning the Democratic Party and coming over to the Republican side, where there is a message of endless possibility, right?
Hope. Right.
Yes.
And I think actually, and this is props to President Trump went into the White House. He tackled the hard stuff that Democrats would never tackle, like criminal justice reform. He talked about economic issues. And here's what you have now. When you realize that for so long, this one guy was vilified as being a racist and all these horrible things, but you realize your life is worse today than it was when he was president. You've got a lot of people now, particularly Black men, as you mentioned, that are saying, you know what? Maybe we don't like any of these characters, but you know what? At least the Republican Party, at least with President Trump in office, you're going to get a fair shot. At least you have a little bit more money in your pocket. At least you have more opportunity around you. There's a little bit more optimism, because that's not what you're getting from Joe Biden, and not in this current climate of leftism, which is really about holding people down.
And I think one of the things that's not talked about enough is the fact that Trump brought some extraordinary Black conservatives around him to help him with his task. And there were just some amazing people there. And I think it's really interesting. I'm actually going to an event tomorrow here in DC with Black conservatives. So it's like there is a growing movement. Now, on that note, I want to also mention one more graduation speech. And I think if you need some inspiration to sort of wash out the bad taste from the Biden graduation,
all of the bad vibes from that Biden speech.
Absolutely. I think there's a perfect contrast in the speech. I guess it's sort of like a generic graduation speech that was done by Clarence Thomas. It's new. It's on PragerU. And he starts out by saying, to the students of 2024. And I mean, Clarence Thomas is, I think, just such an extraordinary inspiration. And I want to say, if anybody hasn't seen the movie yet about him called Created Equal, it is one of the most beautiful movies that I've ever seen. I love that movie. And you'll see some of the elements from the movie in the speech because Clarence Thomas talks about his grandfather. He was primarily raised by his grandparents, who really had very strong values. And he talks about the Irish nuns who educated him. It's amazing to hear him talk in this speech about the fact that how brave these nuns were to come from Ireland to the segregated American South to teach what he described as primarily poor Black children. And they asked these kids to do hard things. They really asked them to work hard, and they were able to do that because of their love. Their love for these kids was so great. But for me, I think what was the most powerful was it's really a call to be courageous, his speech. And of all the people who can talk about that, he certainly can, with everything that he was put through in his Senate confirmation, which, if you remember, it was Senator Joe Biden who gave Clarence Thomas the hardest time of all. But Clarence Thomas said it takes courage to do something despite the risk. And I think there's no more important message right now. I think what Harrison Butker did was incredibly courageous. And I hope, just in spite of all the attacks that are going to be on him, he will stand firm. And I hope he serves as an inspiration to others to stand up and be courageous in this difficult time.
So let me give you this little nugget. So we talked about all the negativity around Harrison Butker. He also has the top selling jersey, both women and men's version, in the last 2 weeks. So he is not suffering. And you know what? I think there is courage in speaking truth. And even when things aren't popular, you know what? You can still go out there and you can still tell people how you feel, and you can still gain consensus with people who agree with you. And unfortunately, I think that when the messages are meant to bring you down, to oppress you, those messages are never going to be as powerful as the ones based in truth and optimism. And I think that's what we see from Harris Butker. And let's listen a little bit now to Clarence Thomas. It's a good place for us to end today's episode. This is Clarence Thomas from that video on PragerU.
Do you have the will and the courage to prepare educationally, morally, and intellectually to address the myriad challenges that you will face? In this world of social media and shaming and other personal attacks, will you have the courage of your convictions to stand up for what you believe in? There are challenges coming your way, as I've so often had to do in my own life. I pray that each of you will have the wisdom to know what is right and the courage to do it. I'm Clarence Thomas, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States.
Here we go. He's one of the best. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Happy graduation to all of you graduates. And it is interesting that even commencement speeches, I guess maybe they have been pretty political for a while, but it seems like we just can't avoid getting angry about things these days, even commencement addresses. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Happy Women is in the can for this week. We hope that you will subscribe, share Happy Women with your friends, download our podcast wherever you get your podcast. And of course, you get all the information at SalemPodcastNetwork.com. And please follow Katie right now. KatieGorka.org is her website. You can link with her on social media there. It'll also remind you to get her book, Next Gen Marxism, available wherever you get your books. And you can follow me as well on Facebook and Instagram, Jennifer Horn Radio, on Truth and Twitter at Jennifer Horn. And we will talk to you again next week. Thanks so much for joining us. It's the Happy Women Podcast.